Welcome back to the channel where we don't do soft stories or nostalgia trips. We dig into the real deals, the backstage power plays, and the moves that made legends untouchable. Today, we're continuing to talk about Gorilla Monsoon, the man who outlasted the territories, outsmarted the old guard, and walked into Vince Jr.'s WWF with a lifetime seat at the table. If you've been here before, you know we don't fluff up history. If this is your first time, buckle up. We're going straight into the kind of backstage business heat most people only whisper about. So grab your seat, stop pretending you know the story, and let's see how Monsoon turned retirement into a power move that nobody else saw coming. By the time the smoke cleared on the old territory map, one man had already cashed out, clocked in, and guaranteed himself a seat at the WWF table for life. That man was Gorilla Monsoon. While the rest of the territory bosses clung to the past like it owed them royalties, Monsoon quietly played businessman. He'd already wrestled his last match, already counted his money, and already figured out the business wasn't about loyalty, it was about leverage. Vince Sr. was gone and the business was changing. His son, Vince Jr., was knocking on doors with cable TV in one hand and a buyout check in the other. Most of the old guard slammed the door. Monsoon opened it, smiled, and asked if the deal came with a commentary seat. He traded his ownership stake for security, power, and a parking spot that outlasted the boys who laughed at him for selling out. Turns out, he didn't sell out, he bought in early. By the mid-1970s, Gorilla Monsoon wasn't just a giant in the ring, he was a calculating veteran who knew when to walk away. His last matches weren't about glory, they were about positioning. Every slam, every chop, every splash of sweat on the canvas reminded the boys in the locker room that he still owned the room, even if he was thinking about what came after the bell. Monsoon's final bouts weren't headliners in the sense of drawing massive crowds anymore. He wrestled selectively, mostly protecting younger talent, while still maintaining the aura of invincibility that made him a household name. He was stiff enough to scare the rookies, but careful enough to leave them standing, most of the time. One remembered thinking, "This is a man who could crush me, but he won't. Not yet." Meanwhile, Monsoon had already begun scanning the horizon. The old WWF territories were crumbling. Vince Jr. was coming, and Monsoon knew the smart money wasn't on nostalgia. It was on being indispensable. That meant thinking beyond the ropes, beyond the arena, beyond the matches themselves. While the fans cheered and the younger wrestlers sweat, Gorilla Monsoon was already trading his in-ring muscle for boardroom leverage. He wrestled his last match, counted his options, and prepared to step out of the ring and into the most secure job in wrestling history. In the end, he didn't just retire, he exited on his terms, feared, respected, and already plotting a move that would outlive everyone who doubted him. After hanging up his boots, Gorilla Monsoon didn't fade into the background. He was one of the few wrestlers who actually owned a slice of the company. Under Vince Sr., insiders like Arnold Skaaland, Toots Mondt, and a handful of backstage partners held minor stakes in Capital Wrestling Corporation. Most of them treated it like a hobby. Monsoon treated it like leverage. Skaaland, the longtime mentor and manager, was loyal but cautious. He refused to sell when Vince Jr. started buying out the old guard. Mondt, the old booking mastermind, clung to nostalgia in the old territories. Meanwhile, Monsoon quietly sized up Vince Jr., realizing the young promoter wasn't playing games. Owning a piece of the company meant he could influence decisions without lifting a finger in the ring. He wasn't greedy, he was strategic. Monsoon watched as other veterans like Buddy Rogers and Pedro Morales resisted the corporate shift, trusting memories instead of contracts. The rookies were being pushed and tested in matches that looked brutal. But Monsoon knew the real test was backstage, staying relevant while the national expansion swept the territory bosses aside. By leveraging his ownership, Monsoon gained more than money. He got influence, respect, and visibility. While Skaaland, Mondt, and others debated whether to cash out or cling to nostalgia, Monsoon quietly ensured he'd be indispensable to Vince Jr.'s plans. He wasn't just surviving, he was quietly positioning himself to control his destiny in a company that would soon dominate wrestling nationally. By the early 1980s, Vince Jr. was consolidating power and going national, and most of the old guard weren't ready. Arnold Skaaland, Toots Mondt, and even legends like Buddy Rogers hesitated. They either didn't trust Vince Jr. or clung to the fading territory system. Most of them would eventually be squeezed out or left behind. Monsoon didn't wait. He sold his minority stake in Capital Wrestling Corporation directly to Vince Jr., turning ownership into security. The deal wasn't just about money, it came with a guaranteed lifetime role in WWF. That included commentary, a say in backstage operations, and a front row seat in the creative and business decisions that would define the 1980s wrestling boom. Sources confirm that Monsoon's move surprised many in the locker room. Skaaland reportedly muttered he wouldn't sell, thinking Vince Jr.'s cable TV gamble was risky, while Monsoon quietly saw the future. He recognized that owning a small piece of paper didn't matter if you weren't indispensable. Being valuable to the new regime did. Even backstage, Monsoon's reputation helped. Heenan, Vince Jr., and other staffers all recalled how he carried authority without ego. While other veterans relied on past glory to keep their influence, Monsoon made sure he had the leverage Vince Jr. couldn't ignore. By cashing out at the right moment, Monsoon didn't just survive the national expansion, he became part of its foundation. The young stars like Hulk Hogan and Ricky Steamboat were being pushed into the spotlight, but Monsoon was the constant behind the curtain, ensuring the company ran smoothly while the old-timers wondered if they'd ever get a return on their stubbornness. Once the sale was complete, Gorilla Monsoon wasn't just a former wrestler with a paycheck. He became a fixture in the WWF's backstage and creative engine. Vince Jr. relied on him for more than commentary. Monsoon oversaw talent, advised on booking, and essentially acted as the bridge between management and the locker room. Names like Heenan, Sergeant Slaughter, and Hulk Hogan all recalled Monsoon as the man who could calm chaos or call out trouble before it hit the fans. Monsoon's lifetime role also gave him a unique perspective. He could observe, influence, and occasionally punish without being on the card. Young stars like Ricky Steamboat or Jake Roberts might be the ones getting the spotlight, but Monsoon's presence ensured the company's foundation was steady. In short, while others debated whether to adapt or retire quietly, Gorilla Monsoon leveraged his lifetime deal into real power. He didn't just cash out, he became the backbone of the WWF's transition from regional territory to national empire. By the mid-1980s, the WWF was a national powerhouse, and the old territory veterans were scrambling to find relevance. Buddy Rogers was gone, his influence faded. Toots Mondt had long retired, clinging to memories of the 1940s and 50s. Arnold Skaaland remained in the company, but only in a limited managerial capacity. Monsoon, however, was still omnipresent. Gorilla Monsoon had outlasted everyone because he combined business acumen with in-ring credibility. Vince Jr. didn't just see him as a commentator. He was a trusted advisor, a stabilizing force, and the man who could smooth over conflicts before they blew up. Stars like Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, and Ricky Steamboat knew Monsoon wasn't just a voice on the mic. He was someone whose opinion mattered, and ignoring him could mean trouble. Even backstage chaos, heated arguments between Heenan, Roberts, and the up-and-comers, ran through Monsoon. He had the authority to check bad behavior, guide younger talent, and quietly keep the company on track. While most of the old guard faded into nostalgia or irrelevance, Monsoon maintained influence over both the talent and the corporate side, a combination few could achieve. His longevity wasn't luck, it was calculated. He retired from the ring, recognized the shift in power, sold his stake at the right moment, and leveraged his lifetime deal fully. Monsoon didn't just survive the WWF's transformation, he became one of its pillars, ensuring that when the dust settled, he was the one everyone could depend on to keep the ship steady. By the end of the decade, Monsoon's foresight had left a stark contrast. While most veterans had faded, he remained respected, feared, and indispensable. The only territory-era figure to turn retirement into lasting power. Gorilla Monsoon didn't just retire, he retired smart. While the old guard clung to the nostalgia and memories of the territories, he sold his stake, secured a lifetime role, and became indispensable to Vince Jr.'s WWF. He ran the locker room without lifting a finger in the ring, commanded respect from stars like Hogan and Steamboat, and shaped the company quietly but effectively. Monsoon outlasted legends, outsmarted peers, and proved you don't need a title belt to control the game. Well, that's all for today. If you enjoyed watching Gorilla Monsoon outsmart the old guard, hit that like button and subscribe. Don't miss the next installment, where we dive into his commentary reign alongside the legendary Jesse the Body Ventura. Trust me, it's full of backstage heat, sharp insights, and classic Monsoon wit. Thanks for watching.